Hey, it's Eric, it's Nick. We are back from the GP du Lake Chargagagog Manchagagog Chowbunagungumog at Thompson Motorsports Park Speedway in Connecticut, which was, as usual, kind of featuring some great bribes. We had a good atmosphere. I brought a Hartford Whalers bribe stencil. There was some wildlife in and around the cars. It was kind of a great vibe.
Now, Thompson is like a lot of racetracks. Racers over the years have picked up these visual reference points to tell them things like braking points, turn in, etc. It's like Laguna Seca's got the oak tree that tells you when to turn in for the corkscrew. Thompson is no different. When you're coming off of the oval, transitioning back onto the race course, you have to pick up a specific marker in the paddock that tells you when to turn in, and this is it. Wait a minute, what is that?
Enhance.
Enhance, then forward frame by frame.
Enhance.
Yeah, I got it.
Now, this race took place on the same closing weekend as the Olympics. Judge Chris Haas came up with a great set of Olympic games that we put participants through, and we even gave winners some medals.
Some of the most remarkable performances in Olympic history took place here against some of the most beautiful backdrops anywhere in the world.
Number 84, the Ultimate Warrior team. Of course, they drive a Nissan Altima. They brought a great paddock vehicle this time. It was a motorized rolling couch controlled by a PlayStation controller.
Hella sweet at this race. 3 teams together put on a hell of a party. Those teams were 2 Broke to Care, Bright Ideas Racing, and 3 Pedal Mafia. They did a pig roast. They fed all kinds of people in the paddock. They had a band play. That was all hella sweet.
Flame Car Racing, they have a BMW 2002 Rune Classic. They're called Flame Car Racing because this was a car that the team captain had rebuilt to be like a show car, a classic BMW concours machine, and then it caught on fire. At which point he decided, I'm going to make that into a Lemons car. Turns out, catching on fire, not the worst thing to happen to this car during its life.
That 2002 crash did bring out a red flag, and there was many calls over the radio about fire. There was a vehicle on fire, and it took us a long time to figure out which car it was. Turned out it was the fire truck.
Hella Sweet was another BMW 2002 Rune Classic. This was one, it was a Soviet CCCP themed. It was partially worked on by Jake Weil, who is a Lemons racer who won at Thompson in the Mass Holes Escort years ago, but this BMW, hella sweet.
Speaking of the Mass Holes old Ford Escort ZX2, Eastbound and Down is a team we've seen many years at Thompson, usually in the midst of an engine swap. They got tired of their Subaru with the heads totally torched. They bought the Mass Holes old Ford Escort, which had won a race previously. And, they didn't win this time, but it actually turned laps, which was pretty hella sweet.
Hella sweet was the Sabrina Duncan's Revenge Pinto. Now, there's a little bit to unpack here. This team is made up of Pinto enthusiasts. They race a Pinto in Lemons. Their team name, Sabrina Duncan's Revenge, is a reference to the fact that Sabrina Duncan, one of the Charlie's Angels, apparently drove a Pinto on the show. Who knew? They have another Pinto that was requested to be present at the near to Thompson Speedway Museum of Tort Law. Who knew that was a thing? So they sent their Pinto to the museum, and to really top off the exhibit, they brought one of their brand new in-box recall Ford Pinto fuel tank shields. That, of course, was a result of the tort lawsuit due to the rear end fire and explosion. Whole thing, very high concept, very hella sweet.
Now, there were several but terribles that are worth mentioning here. Germane to that is the number 76 Lancia, which was one of 2 Lancia Scorpions racing in probably the first time in human history. Who knows? Ironically, they were both secondhand. This one ran 2 laps at Thompson last year. Managed to get a whole 12 this year. Kind of but terrible, but I think we'll see it back.
BRF Racing, you guys might remember these guys. They brought the first ever Dodge Aspen to race in Lemons. They had swapped in an Ecotec General Motors 4-cylinder engine. that was pretty sweet. For this race, they were like, you know what, we're going to turbocharge that Ecotech. And they did. And it worked badly. And they disconnected it. It ran even worse. They reconnected it. It worked as badly as it did to start, which was pretty bad, but not as bad as when they disconnected it. The long and short of it was, their second team car totally destroyed the Aspen. What was the second team car? Dodge Omni.
Butt Turbo was the 74 super soft racing Volkswagen Golf. Not really sure what the horse had to do with it. Not really sure what they were doing. They weren't really sure either, but they were having a good time. It's not hard.
Cheese Bolt Enterprises, they have a Ford Tempo. That's great. They also have embarked on this mission to sort of buy up a lot of weird 80s Ford variations. I'm sure Judge Sajiv understands this mission. The rest of us kind of don't. So here's the deal. They've got a Tempo, and they also bought a Ford EXP. They also found a Ford Taurus MT5. Now, the Ford Taurus MT5 has a version of the Tempo motor, but it's the HSO version instead of the HSC version. So what does all of this mean? EXP, MT5, HSO, HSC? Well, we're not sure.
Now, in contrast to all the butt turbo's we've covered, there was also a lot of hella sweet. We'll start with the Honda Odyssey Type R. Always fantastic to see.
Garage Heroes in Training. They're a multi-car veteran Lemons team. They had an S10. That team was made up of all women drivers. We love that as well.
Porsche 924. Usually not hella sweet. Usually run by Porsche douchebags. Here was a bunch of noobs who showed up with a Steve Jobs crapple theme, and the back was filled with beans.
This pile of...
These are the motherboards.
No, this is food. This is beans. Someone put beans inside the computer.
Kind of a good news, bad news story for the British Empire Strikes Back and their Sunbeam Alpine. The good news was they ran 17 times as many laps as their previous race. Bad news was their previous race was MGMP, where they ran 0 laps. The other bad news was they showed up in tech, the brakes didn't work so good, and the team captain might have slightly run over his son. And the good news, bad news was they did pass tech, but not until well into the day on Saturday. All of that is really just background for how sweet this car is. Look at it.
Hell sweet were these noobs in a Jetta TDI. Now, diesel, breaking everything because of all the torque. That was the half shafts, the brakes, the hubs, all of those things, and that was because it was a diesel. You know, gas Volkswagens don't do that.
Erroneous! Erroneous!
Anyway, as they were breaking all this stuff, it became slightly confusing when they pulled into the paddock to adjust their tire pressures by like half a pound with a bike pump.
That's the difference between winning and losing.
Hella sweet was the Dodge Monaco of Team O from New Orleans. Of course, this team is quickly becoming one of the craziest / most interesting teams in Lemons.
Now, we had a couple of cool rally-themed cars, not Lemons Rally, but, you know, stage rally off in the woods where people are launching over things. One of them was the Rusty Tier Racing Pontiac Fiero that has worn several Group B liveries over the years, and they brought us cookies wearing all of those liveries. That was hella sweet.
So another stage rally replica tribute car was from Autobahn Cruisemobile. Now this was a 98 Focus. It showed up, it looked like a real WRC car. And we're like, what the $500 my ass. Then we started looking closer, and all of the stuff on the interior, the rally computer, all of that stuff was like movie props. It was made out of little LED lights, switches not connected to anything, decals. What is the deal with this thing? We pop the hood, it's got some terrible Euro market 1.1 liter motor. What is the story with this car? So it turns out they bought it from the O'Neill Rally School, and this car was designed to promote the WRC effort from whatever Ford Focus team this was, and this was the car built to go on the car show circuit. So it was never a race car. It had all the stuff that looked real from a distance, but it was really just some terrible Euro Focus with a bunch of stickers on it. Now, fun fact, the team principal of that original 1998 rally team was none other than Günther Steiner, who is famous now for his work in Formula One.
And now we are a bunch of wankers. Yeah, bunch of clowns here.
Speaking of replica cars, we had the Chevy Monte Carlo that is done up like the Toyota Supra from Fast and Furious. Now, they don't really need to do a whole lot during BS inspection, but this time around they decided to put on a whole performance that was like a typical Barrett-Jackson auction.
All right, now we've got this team called the Integra Pride Boys and the Tiki Torch Take Back. This requires a little bit of background. As you know, a bunch of sort of real loser wannabe Nazi types, they decided to adopt the Tiki Torch as one of their symbols. This team, they didn't want the Tiki Torch to be appropriated by such groups, so they redid their whole theme. Instead of the Proud Boys, they were the Pride Boys, and they took back the Tiki Torch as a symbol of their team.
Now, this is something that we've believed in for a long time and is actually part of the rules, but if you have a problem with someone's gender, sexual orientation, private parts, really anything about their personal life, don't bother coming to Lemons. We're an inclusive series. We don't need that.
Now, despite that fact, there are people who apparently can't understand this very simple concept. And when we posted a picture of this car on our social media, several people just got all wound up. And you know, that's really a concern for us because as we all know, internet comment sections, that's where you find the smartest, most well-researched, most relevant opinions and commentary in the world.
Moving on to the trophies for the weekend, we had, of course, the Yokohama Road Mangler Cup. Now, this is pretty simple. Bring your car on a set of Yokohama tires. You get entered at the end of the weekend to win a set of Yokohama tires. And at this race, we have the most Yokohama tires we've had. I'm trying to see how many times I can say Yokohama tires in this segment. So, Yokohama tires, Yokohama tires. There were 6 sets of them. And car number 491, Corky Racing, took the set of Yokohama tires home. Yokohama tires.
It's like people only do things because they get paid.
The heroic fix went to the Baja boosters in their Mazda MX-3. They didn't pass tech on Friday. They had to fix a bunch of stuff with their cage, which they did overnight. It is possible. They showed up on Saturday, passed tech, raced for a while, blew up their clutch, had to pull the engine. They had never worked on a front-wheel drive car before, so they were like, oh, why is this over here and that is over there? They eventually figured it out. They got it right. They just never gave up, and it was a very heroic effort. Now, it's worth noting, the weird anime graphic on the side of this car, we were like, what's the deal with that? We asked them. They said, we don't know. We just thought our car was too boring. We went on Amazon. It was the cheapest thing that they could find that could be delivered the next day, so that's what they got. Sometimes, that's all you need to do to theme your car.
The flip side of the heroic fix is the I Got Screwed, and that went to Over-Engineered Racing. Now, these guys won Class B last year with their BMW 5 Series, so they brought that back and their Mini Cooper, and they took them both home totally crumpled. That sucked. Screwed as hell.
The special award was the Varför Förstoden du Klassiker Award, which is a perfect Swedish pronunciation of Why You Ruin Classic. Now, Team Rust in the Wind, we've known this bunch for a long time. They have a Z31 chassis Nissan 300ZX into which they had swapped a Saab turbo motor. Now, this combination worked amazingly well. They won at least one Lemons race with this car. And for the last couple of years, we just haven't seen them. And we wondered, like, oh, did it finally burst into flames like we thought it was going to all along? Well, it turns out they were working on a top secret project. They took parts from that original Z31 300ZX and they got another parts car. They took the Saab motor, 300ZX subframes. They took all of this stuff and crammed it underneath the body of a 1963 Ford Falcon. Why You Ruin Classic. This car was incredible. Saab turbo motors, they're pretty good in Lemons, and this thing was quick. It had lap times in the top 5. The car looked incredible. It's exactly the kind of weird project that probably wouldn't be allowed in any other form of racing, so we love to see it. If you have a dumb idea like this, by all means, do it.
Now, we mentioned that there were 2 second-hand Lancia Scorpions racing each other, which, as far as we know, has never happened before. Flat Ball Racing took home the judge's choice with their Scorpion. Now, this was the car that won the Index of Effluency at Sonoma last spring, and we figured, after many, many attempts that they'd pretty much gotten everything out of that, this car would show up with its new owners on the East Coast and blow the hell up. Why would somebody do this? Well, obviously these East Coasters were looking for a mid-engine supercar. Now, this thing ran all weekend somehow. It apparently has been sorted. We look forward to seeing this car again. This is exactly what we want to see in Lemons. This and, a Ford Falcon with a Saab motor.
All right, Organizer's Choice Award requires a little explanation. Let's talk about Heschers. What's a Hescher? It's a stereotype. It was kind of a 90s metal fan, jean jacket, patches, long hair, busted, rattling speakers turned up to 11 in the parking lot of the Circle K. It paints a picture. Now, what kind of car would such a person drive in the mid-1990s? Well, 10 to 15-year-old piece of American car.
Almost 500,000 people are convinced Ford Escort is the right car for the times.
Funny thing about these super early Ford Escorts, according to the team, this one was in '82, they made $7 trillion and they're almost extinct. These guys, they knew that. They have a bit of a car accumulating problem. They saw one on eBay. They're like, man, when's the last time you seen one of those? Had to bid on it. They did. They won. Had to figure out how to go get it. It was in Pennsylvania, they're in Boston. And then they had to figure out what to do with it. One of the team dudes said, I've always wanted to do Lemons. That was 3 weeks before the race. They made it happen. It was amazing.
Now, as you might imagine with a car that was prepared in 3 weeks, there were some issues passing tech. They rolled up through tech, already looking tired, just asked what they were going to fail on, and we pointed them out. They went back and they fixed them. They didn't sleep for about 24 straight hours, so once they finally got the car on track, they would drive for about 5 minutes and then bring the car in and take a rest.
All right, Index of Effluency, the grand prize. This went to Valve Tap Racing and their 78 Chrysler. Now, this is a big luxury coupe. It's got a big block Chrysler motor. This is actually the final year of the Chrysler B-body. And despite having no business on a road course participating in an endurance race, the car held together, finished way up in the standings, beating many cars much superior to what they brought. So, slam dunk IOE.
And that brings us to Lemons in a nutshell.
Cordova.